super excited to have you here for this master class. Here's what I'm going to do. I am going to start the recording. Super excited to have you here for
I'm getting some feedback
for this master class.
Let me just
Here's what I'm going to do. Close that down so that I am not distracted by it. So let's get started. I have a lot that I want to share with everyone. And so I'm really excited to be able to share it all with you. So I have slides because I have a tendency to I get so passionate about this topic sometimes that I go off script, and I want to make sure I give you all of the things that I've promised to give you in this masterclass. So I'm really delighted to have you all here. And I'm going to share my screen, which includes the slides that I have prepared. So give me 1 second to pull all my tech up, get everything good for you. And we will go from there. All right, share screen. Here we go. All the things. How much technology can I present? There we go. All right, so hopefully if I did everything correctly, and you can let me know in the chat, you should see me in a little corner box, and the slides are full screen for all of your viewing pleasure. So if I've done that correctly, let me know in the chat. Yep, we can see everything we need. That would be really helpful for me. But we're going to get started. And here's the thing that I want you to anchor yourself into. Why did you sign up for this masterclass? Right? I want you to just take a moment. We live our lives so busy, moving from one thing to the next, signing up for stuff, showing up for stuff. I want you to just take a moment to pause and to ask yourself, why did I sign up for this? What is it that I want from this experience? There's plenty of other things I could be doing with my time, plenty of other things that I could have signed up for. And here I am on a masterclass about communication styles in marriage. So I want you to answer that question. Like, don't skip this part. Sometimes our brains, we like to hear questions, but we don't actually like to answer them. And I want to invite you to answer this question. So if you are so inclined to put it in the chat, you can just share your answer with me, or you can share it with everyone that is also on this masterclass, because they are also here for probably many of the same purposes. But it's a really, really important question for you to ask yourself. Why are you here? What is it that you want to gain from this experience? So whether you're putting it in the chat or not, I really, really want to encourage you to answer it, okay? It's important data that we're actually going to refer back to later in our time, all right? So that's number one. Here's what I know, that a person who signs up for a masterclass like this makes the time in their schedule to be here live or watch the replay for those of you who will watch the recording. It ultimately boils down to this truth, is that you are here because you are ready for something to change. I want you to just let that sink in for a moment. You are here because there is some part of you that recognizes that the way things are not exactly the way you want them to be, and you are ready for it to be different. And so when you heard about this opportunity to learn about communication styles, your brain went like, ooh, that will probably help me create some change. So it's important that you know that about yourself. It's important that you know that your intention is not to just be entertained, not to just sit here and learn something and not do anything with it, but that you are here because you are ready for something to change. And I want to applaud you, because there are literally hundreds and hundreds of people that had this same opportunity that aren't ready for change. They're dealing with the same exact issues that you were dealing with, the same exact struggles, and they're staying stuck there. But you're not. So you are already part of an elite group of people, and I am honored to guide you and be a part of your journey in creating that change. Okay. So awesome. What I'm going to share with you is one of the first steps in creating that change. And I want you to be confident about that, right? And here's exactly how we are going to do that and exactly what you will learn in this time. We are going to be talking about what are communication styles and why they are having such an impact on the quality of your marriage. I'm going to be sharing with you 4 specific communication styles that lead to conflict, disconnection, and frustration. I'm going to be within that talking about the origins of those communication styles, the mindset and assumptions that are driving you if you fall into one of those styles. And then I'm going to be sharing with you the most essential communication style that you need that is necessary if you want to have a happier marriage where ultimately you are consistently getting along and you're enjoying each other and you're in a lot less conflict. And then every time I do a masterclass, I always want to leave you with a next step. You have already gotten yourself in forward motion. You've already created some momentum just by plugging in and tuning into this experience. And so I'm going to share with you your next steps after this time is done to continue to create the shifts that you want to experience. Right. So I'm going to check the chat because I know someone answered a little bit about what they are looking for. I want to understand how to communicate with my partner who has a completely different communication style than me. I want to learn him better so that we can actually communicate better in our relationship. You are not alone in that desire. I promise you, 90% of the people here, one, have a different communication style than their partner, and they're here wanting to learn so that they can make it better. So I love that you shared that. Thank you. All right, so how did I learn this? Who am I to teach you this? Who am I to share this valuable information with you and to make such a bold promise that it really is a critical and important step in improving your communication? So, hello, if you are new to me, I am Dr. Siobhan Parat. I am a life and marriage coach. And prior to starting my coaching business, which was almost 10 years ago now, which I cannot even believe because I'm only like 13 years old. Prior to that, I studied communication. So I have a doctorate degree. My degree is actually in public health, but I studied intimate partnerships and I studied interpersonal communication. I was always fascinated with relationships. And so even though my degree is in public health, I studied very heavily the social science of it. So I have a research brain. I have a scientist brain, and I like processes and I like steps and I like being able to tell you how to actually do something. So if you are looking for steps, if you are looking for a system, if you are looking for something that's going to help you be really effective and efficient in what you are doing in your communication, you are 100% in the right place. After getting my doctorate, I spent 8 years leading a program that helped develop healthy relationship skills, of which communication was numero uno. So I have a lot of experience both designing curriculum, evaluating the effectiveness of that curriculum, and delivering that curriculum to help people change their lives. In addition to that, after I left that position and started my own business, I have spent the past 10 years really learning and studying from the best, most world-renowned experts on the topic of marriage, relationships, communication. Okay. I probably have read 50 books. A lot of times people are always asking me, what book do you recommend? And I always have a recommendation. And then with that, right, with my expertise that I've honed and developed, I've helped so many clients understand their communication styles, navigate their communication styles, and ultimately shift them to the healthy style that creates really thriving relationships. And the other thing that I have to share that all of my clients know and appreciate so much about the experience of working with me is I am a real human being with a real human marriage. My husband and I have been together for almost 17 years. We have been married for 12. And we are real human beings with real human challenges. We have very different communication styles. We have very different, a lot of things. And so many of the struggles and the ways that you are trying to connect the dots and, pull things together in your own marriage, I've also done and had to do. And it's so funny because when I first started this business, I would say that I was in probably what was the most ideal state in my own marriage. It was right around, we had just had our first child and it was new, like everything was new. So I birthed a baby and I birthed a business. And it was just like the height of, we had had at that point 8 years of bliss. Really, right? We had dated for 5 years and then we were like in our first 3 years of marriage where we were both very well established in our career, living our best lives, right? And then we start a family and I start a business and I'm home and we have had to use, test, experiment, lots of trial and error with everything that I teach you. And so I teach not only from a very academic lens, right, of like knowing what works, evidence-based, but I also teach from a very lived experience. My clients are always astounded at how well I know exactly how they feel. Like their heads are like vigorously shaking a lot of the times in our sessions because I can pinpoint exactly what they're thinking, exactly what they're feeling, exactly what they're going through because I have experienced it too, right? So that is a little bit about me. I want to just dive right in to the topic and the highlight of what we're even here to talk about, which is communication styles. And so I am defining communication styles as how people process and understand communication, how people express themselves and convey their ideas, their thoughts, and their desires. Now, here's the thing that you have to know about communication styles. It's not something that we consciously create growing up. It's not that we're like, oh, I'm going to adopt this communication style. It is something that we breathe in and experience. So our communication styles are largely influenced by how you were communicated with as a child, how your needs were addressed. And notice that I said how your needs were addressed. It doesn't mean that your needs were actually met because a lot of us, our needs weren't met. So it was how they were addressed. Were you hushed? Were you told to stop crying? Were you told, stop crying or I'll give you something to cry for? Right? That impacts your communication style. And it also impacts how you learn to see yourself and how you learn to see yourself, and the concept and the identity that you assume about yourself influences everything about your communication. Okay. It is also closely related to attachment style for those of you who are familiar with that. And for those of you who've been in my world for a while, I did an entire masterclass on attachment styles. And so if you participated in that, or if you're familiar with attachment styles, you know exactly what I mean, that they are connected. Okay. Now, if you didn't attend my attachment styles masterclass, don't know what I'm talking about, no worries, because you're going to get everything that you need here today, regardless. The other thing that is important to know about communication styles is it's not black and white. None of us are 100% one way and 0% another way. So as we discuss these styles, what you're going to find is that, oh, I might have these tendencies in these scenarios, and I might have these other tendencies in these other scenarios. Perfectly normal. And it's also important to just acknowledge that what works in one setting, like how you show up professionally, your communication style at work, doesn't actually mean that that's the right communication style in your intimate partnership, right? And certain situations require various communication styles. But for our purposes today, I want to laser us in on looking at your marriage or your close, connected, intimate partnership. Okay. And with that, the communication style that you adopt in your marriage, in addition to being influenced by your childhood and how you learn to communicate, it is also influenced by your past as a couple, which means that the way you experienced your partner's response to you in the past can also have a huge impact on the type of communication style that you adopt and that you use currently. Okay. All important information to know. Just let me know in the chat if this is all making sense to you. I love your feedback. I love to know that I'm like hitting the things that you expected to learn and want to be learning. Okay. All right. With all of that, I want to talk about the impact of your communication style, right? We're going to talk about what they are and you're going to have those details. But for now, it's so important that you know how impactful the way you communicate with your partner is, right? So the way you communicate with your partner influences first their ability to understand you, their ability to empathize with you, and their ability to support you. The way you communicate with your partner impacts how they feel about you and how they experience you as a spouse, right? So if you have a partner that's withdrawing or a partner that's very defensive, you want to start looking at like, is my communication style contributing to this, right? How you communicate with your partner also deeply influences the amount of quality and meaningful time you spend with each other. If you are in a marriage with someone whose communication style is very off-putting or very disconnecting, over time, they're not going to want to spend as much time with you, right? They're going to want to protect themselves from that negative experience. Your communication style and how you talk to your partner impacts the quality of your connection and overall feeling about your marriage. It impacts how your spouse feels in your presence, whether they feel loved and seen and valued, or they feel diminished and dismissed. The way you communicate also impacts your ability to solve issues as a couple, right? And get on the same page with making decisions. It impacts your ability to build a happy and fulfilling life together. And most importantly, because I'm a relationship person, right? And so how you communicate with your partner influences the degree to which you are fully seen, the degree to which you are fully known, loved, and accepted for who you are. And let me tell you that at the end of the day, when we distill what life and marriage and partnership is all about, this is what we all want the most. We want to be fully seen and known and loved and accepted for who we really are. And you want to be aware of if the way you are communicating is impeding that from happening. Your ability to demonstrate healthy communication is a make or break for your marriage. I really want that to sink in, right? Because if you cannot communicate, you have no connection and no meaningful relationship. And if there's any relationship we want, connection and a meaningful relationship, it is marriage. Okay. So communication is so, so important. And again, you are here because you are ready for something to change. I want to break down the types of communication styles, and then we're going to dive into each one. So there is healthy. I have defined healthy communication as communication that is assertive, vulnerable, and collaborative. And we're going to talk about exactly what that is. But first, we've got to uncover what is getting in the way for you in being able to consistently have that healthy communication. And there are four main communication styles that get in the way of that. There is the passive submissive style, the aggressive style, the passive aggressive style, and the manipulative. So let's talk about those. Okay. Here's how I want you to come to talking about them. I like to think of things as like umbrellas. So I'm going to give you 3 umbrellas that are really going to help provide like an anchor for how we're going to have the rest of this conversation. The first piece is awareness, right? We are here connecting the dots and bringing the unknown into view because you can't make something better when you're unaware of what's really happening. The other really important umbrella for all of this is that you have clarity because we are going to be identifying what you want, right? So many times when I talk to people, they just list what's going wrong and they aren't thinking about what they want and what needs to change and shift to create what they want. And then the last umbrella is that of motivation, where this whole point of all of this is to inspire you and to empower you to do better. Okay. The other thing that's important is the learning lens I want you to adopt. This is an invitation that as we talk about these styles, you keep the focus on you, right? And even if it's not your style all of the time, because again, we are not 100% one thing and 0% another. If it's not your style all the time, just notice where it has happened, where you have dipped into one of the more unhealthy communication styles. And the other thing, because you're a human, you are going to notice things about your spouse. You're going to notice like, ooh, they do that communication style. And I want to just normalize that because you're human. But as you notice things about your spouse and their communication style, I want you to seek to understand with compassion and with curiosity and not judgment and not to like police them and say, see, I told you you do this, right? Because that's also not connecting and that's also not going to move you forward. I also want to invite you to just trust the process that your growth and their growth is happening as it should, right? There are times when you have an awareness of something and you are taking productive action at a faster pace than maybe they are. Right? That's not for you to like now control them and now drag them along to catch up with you. You want to be in a posture of just trusting that I am focusing on me. I'm focusing on what's in my control, what I can do to make this better. And then I also want you to be committed to positive forward movement no matter what. No matter what. Okay. All right. Have I given you enough context setting? The last thing that I want to say is no matter where you start to notice things as I share these styles, things can change. You can change. Your spouse can change. And this awareness is the first step. So again, you are right on track with learning this information. So here are the 4 unhealthy communication styles. Number 1, the passive submissive. So in this communication style, what is driving you, if you fall into this, is your goal is to make your partner happy, right? And avoid conflict, which you believe makes you happy, right? If my partner is happy, I'm happy. If we're not fighting, I'm happy, right? What happens when you have this communication style is you downplay your own wants and needs. And to some degree, I've seen some people just not even be aware of what they want and what they need. You may often feel unimportant or dismissed, so you don't share your ideas or articulate your desires, right? So this is what that looks like. If you say phrases commonly like, whatever you want, I don't care, doesn't matter to me, I don't have a preference, what do you want to do? Or you're quick to apologize. I'm sorry, it's my fault, just to get out of conflict. Now, here's the flip side of that, of what your partner is thinking and experiencing if you have this communication style. Your partner is likely thinking, you don't care, right? You have no opinion, you have no initiative, you don't care. I always have to do everything. I always have to be the one to make the decisions. You never have an opinion about anything. I'm basically alone in this, right? And then the impact that this communication style has is that there's no true partnership. right? It feels like a one-sided relationship, and there's no true connection or intimacy because you're not really making yourself available to be known. You have no opinions. You defer to whatever your partner wants, right? And then ultimately what happens is that your issues don't get resolved. They get swept under the rug with apologies because you just want to stay out of conflict. So if they're upset or if you're having any conflict, it's like, oh no, let's fix this. I'm sorry. I'll do whatever needs to happen. And that doesn't lead to anything actually getting resolved. And then it also sets up and creates an unfavorable power dynamic, right? So I want you to just pause for a moment and think about like, could this be me? And if it is, just, you can let me know in the chat. You can just message directly to me and share in the chat like, oh, yeah, I fall into that from time to time. You just want to be aware. So that's one, right? Now, the flip side is the aggressive communication style. So the person that has this style of communication, their goal is to be happy. Listen, all of our goals is to be happy. We do everything to make ourselves happy. But their goal is to be happy having the things you want, right? If this is your style, you want to be happy, but you want to be happy with the things that you want, with things the way that you want, and you want others, namely your spouse, to agree with you, right? So what this creates is that you have an over focus on your needs and you disregard other people's needs. And really underneath this, and I don't say this with any judgment, it's just an observation, right? Is that the person who has the more aggressive communication style is operating from the emotion of pride, self-righteousness, and underneath that usually is a bit of insecurity, where I have to be louder and more dominating because underneath it all, I'm a little bit insecure. What this looks like in conflict and in conversations in a marriage is a lot of blaming, right? Blaming your partner, criticizing your partner, even tearing your partner down with your words, right? It's loud and threatening and an intimidating voice because you're trying to exert control, cursing, yelling, screaming, right? We're going to have a real conversation here, right? I deal with real people in their real marriages. I know these things happen in some marriages, right? And the person that has the aggressive style is dominating a conversation and they're not open to their partner's perspective. Okay. So what does this create? For the person who is your partner, if you have this style of communication, they are thinking you're going to get upset. And ultimately, they're scared to talk to you. They might say in their head, I can't talk to them. I can't say that to them, right? They may say, you don't care about what I want, or it's your way or the highway, right? Now, the impact on the relationship is, again, there's no true partnership. It is a one-sided relationship. There's no connection or intimacy because the partner then has to shrink themselves to survive or get through conflict, right? And then what inadvertently happens is once they're shrinking, they're building up a lot of resentment because their issues are being diminished and ignored, right? And it also sets up an unfavorable power dynamic. This need to kind of walk on eggshells because you're really afraid that someone's going to have an outburst or lashing out. Okay. How are you guys doing? Let me know. You're quiet. That's why I said a lot of context, because sometimes having this awareness and seeing yourself, it can be like, a lot to take in, right? This ends well. Promise you, this can end well. All right. The passive aggressive communication style. So here, if this is you, what is happening is your goal is to be happy, as for all of us, right? And what I find is that you're often unaware of the mixed signals that you give off. right? So there is this inability to truly express how you feel. There's a sense of even powerlessness sometimes, right? Where it's like, oh, it doesn't really matter, right? It's a combination of the two. It doesn't really matter, but also it does. And I'm annoyed that I'm not being heard, right? And the person who has the passive aggressive communication style is more likely to have a lot of resentment built up, and they're stewing in like this quiet anger, but also trying to keep the peace, right? So what that looks like is maybe you say yes to things that you really mean no, or you commit to things, but then you don't really follow through because you didn't really want to do it, right? Or you might deny that something is wrong. Your partner may be like, hey, is something wrong? You're like, no, nothing's wrong, right? But your behavior is so clearly indicating that you're angry or you're unhappy or that something has shifted, but you'll deny it, right? Sometimes this also shows up with like sarcastic, underhanded statements. Like, you know, it's not for some people, right? Or some people need to do this, right? You're stewing in that quiet anger, but also trying to keep the peace, right? And then another thing that I often see is people who have this communication style will also use like delay tactics. So their partner may want to talk about something and they'll be like, oh, we can talk about it later, right? But then there's no later. It's just like a prolonged, we'll get to it later. And it kind of leaves the other person hanging, right? So, what is the partner of someone with this communication style thinking and experiencing? The first thing is they're asking, am I going crazy? Like, this just doesn't make sense. It's because of those mixed signals, right? Like, I'm angry, but I'm trying to keep the peace. And they have that experience. They have the experience of like, I feel like I'm getting mixed signals here, or I'm getting the runaround. Like, what is going on? It's hard for them to put their finger on it, right? And then they also have the experience and think like, I never really know how you feel or what to expect because you're kind of wearing a mask. Like, I don't know when you're really unhappy because if I ask you, you'll say everything's fine, right? And then here's the impact on the relationship. The impact on the relationship is it erodes trust because you have these mixed signals. It's like, come here, but go away, right? It's very difficult to identify what do I do with that, right? There's lots of circular conversations that don't actually go anywhere. It's an emotional roller coaster. And again, those core issues don't get addressed. We sort of skirt around the issues. Okay. So again, just notice like, do I have this tendency? Are there times when I am passive aggressive in my communication style? And then the last one is manipulative, right? And I have so much love and compassion for all of us that struggle with some of these things. Okay. So the person who is demonstrating the manipulative communication style is operating from the goal is to be happy and to get my way no matter what. They are driven by the need to control and to win, really to win at all costs. And so they have this belief that it doesn't matter what needs to happen. I just have to get what I want, right? And what that looks like sometimes is guilting your partner into doing something, right? Making them feel like a horrible person if they don't do the thing that you want them to do. It also looks like threats, right? Where that's threatening to leave the relationship or kicking them out if they don't do what you want them to do. Lying or twisting situations around to get what you want, like misrepresenting things. It also can show up and look like having a very sort of patronizing tone to discredit the confidence of your partner, right? And trying all angles to get what you want. It is a very calculated set of communication style, right? And there's gaslighting that happens in this one as well, right? So you just want to notice, do I have a tendency to fall into any of these styles, right? Your partner is thinking, am I going crazy? Am I wrong here? Right? I guess I should just do what you want. I don't really have a choice or a say so. You always get your way in the end. I don't really matter. right? And the impact on the relationship is it erodes trust. There's lots of deceit and distortion of facts in this communication style. There's a lot of circular conversations, again, that don't go anywhere until you are happy. There's a very unfavorable power dynamic, and it creates a lot of insecurity in your partner. Right? So those are the 4 unhealthy style. I want us to just take a deep breath in, take a deep breath in, right? Talked about some heavy things. How are you feeling right now? I would love to hear, how are you feeling? Hearing these styles, hearing what it looks like, seeing the impact on your partner. How are you feeling? If you feel comfortable sharing in the comments, I would love to hear. Okay. I'll give you a minute. Just process, right? Sometimes we need a minute to process things. All right. While you're typing in the chat, we've already covered some awareness, right? And for some of us, that may be a heavy awareness. Here's the good news, because I promised, right? We're moving in a good direction here because the awareness is the first step to creating the change. Now we're going to get clear. We're going to get that clarity. We are identifying what we want and what needs to change and shift. Okay, that's where we're going now. So with that, we're going to return to this question. Why did you sign up for this masterclass? What do you want? Right? You only move yourself to what you want by asking yourself what you want. So why did you sign up? What is it that you want? So we have this data now. We have this information about the unhealthy styles. What is it that you want? Here's what I know, right? Good news again. Things can change. You can change. People can change. Awareness is the first step, which we've just done. All right. So let's talk about what you want, which is the healthy communication, right? And healthy communication, as I want to present it to you today, is assertive, it is vulnerable, and it is collaborative, right? So let's dive into that and talk more about what it means. So I've used the acronym AVC, right? Assertive, vulnerable, and collaborative. Here's what drives this style. The goal is to be happy still, right? But through clear, respectful, honest, and kind exchanges. The person that uses this communication style is confident in their own wants and desires, and they feel safe to express themselves, right? So they're not that passive, submissive style. They also hold the expectation of a positive response from their partner, right? So they're not afraid, like people who are responding to the aggressive style, they're not afraid to say things. And even if their partner doesn't respond favorably, they have enough self-trust to still communicate what they want, right? They value equally their needs and their partner's needs, and they're driven by unity and mutual goodwill, which is like, I'm here to create a win-win for both of us. It's not just about me, and it's not about me like submitting to you. It's about us being partners that both care about each other, right? And the person that is using this healthy communication style is using communication to connect and create intimacy and safety. They're not using it to control and get their way, right? They want connection. They want intimacy. They want safety, right? So what this looks like is being clear, concise, vulnerable about what you want or about what's going on for you, right? The person that uses this style is making loving, considerate requests, right? They're using I language or we language, not you language, right? You are doing this. It's like, I want this, need this, right? They are able to set boundaries that honor their needs and are still respectful to their spouse. They are also open-minded and open to compromising and finding a solution that works for both. So notice in the other styles, right? Whether it's passive, it's like, I don't need to compromise. Whatever you want goes, versus aggressive, or the other styles, it's like, no, what I want is the thing that needs to happen, right? So healthy is, let's find a solution that works for us both. Okay? I wanted to give some very concrete language because sometimes we don't really know what this looks like because we haven't experienced it and it's not our reality. So it would look like saying, I would really love to go to the movies this weekend. What do you think? Notice how very clear about what I want and also engaging and creating collaboration with the partner. Is it possible for us to? Right? It's not a demand, it's a question, it's an exploration that we're going to do together. I want to leave at 7 o'clock. Does that work for you? Right? Notice how powerful that can be, right? It's a very simple thing, as opposed to the alternative of like assuming that you're going to leave at 7, then being annoyed that you're not leaving at 7 and either quietly sulking, the passive aggressive, or like yelling and lashing out at your partner when they didn't know that that's what you wanted to do, right? I can't do dinner at that time. Let's find some alternative, right? Or I don't feel comfortable with that, but here's another option. I feel really overwhelmed. And right now I just need a break and to go take a nap. Right? There's nothing to get upset about with that. It's very clear you're taking responsibility for yourself, right? Would you be willing to? That's how you ask a loving request. Not I need you to, not you have to, you should, right? And believe me, I can say that because I'm like, we've all done it. But this is what the healthy communication looks like. Would you be willing to, right? The other thing is with boundary, right? So if, if the taxes aren't done, I've had so many clients, have conflicting things about when their taxes get done, right? Like if the taxes aren't done by whatever date, I'm going to plan to file for an extension or whatever, right? Like it's taking empowered action, communicating that, not in a blaming way, right? Or if you're in conflict or there's just something you don't understand, it's like, I want to understand. I want to understand why you made that choice. Help me see it the way that you were thinking about it, right? Or let's figure this out together. Notice the collaboration. Notice the vulnerability. Notice the clarity and the assertiveness in that style of communication, right? Here's what happens when you communicate that way. Let's see here. Thing is frozen. All right. Your partner thinks, this is my team member. We're partners. Like we're in this together. My opinions, my needs matter. I know what they need, right? I know what makes them happy. Doesn't feel like a shot in the dark, right? I feel respected and valued. The impact on your relationship is it builds trust, safety, consideration. It promotes being more connected in a relationship, right? And a willingness to work together. Issues can be brought up with confidence that they're going to be handled well, like you're not walking on those eggshells, right? And both parties feel seen, heard, and understood. So important. Okay, so I've shared that, right? You're probably asking, all right, yeah, that sounds great. Like, how do I get there? Because that's not what our communication looks like on most days. So glad that you asked, how do you get there, right? Here's what you have to know about healthy communication. It is not something that just magically happens, but it is something that is a set of skills that anyone can learn. It's literally a skill set. And I want you to think about the work that you do You're successful in your work because you have a certain skill set that you learned, that you honed, that you applied. Same here with healthy communication. It is a skill set. It is not something that some people just wake up naturally knowing how to do. It is something that you learn, you hone, and you apply, right? Which is really, really good news. Really good news. And you can learn that skill set once you remove the obstacles that are standing in the way, right? So nothing about what I shared in terms of the healthy communication is rocket science, right? It's like, I'm sure you heard that and you're like, yeah, that makes sense. Of course. Like, yes, of course. But knowing that and understanding it and having it make sense versus being able to execute it and implement it are two very different things. And what stands in the way are obstacles, right? So I want to talk about that because to move you from one of the four unhealthy to this healthier style of communication that is assertive, vulnerable, and collaborative, you've got to identify the specific obstacles standing in the way for you the most, right? Because it's different for everyone. But once you identify that, right? Once you know the obstacle that is standing in the way the most for you, you can make that shift once you address the obstacle, right? So it's literally like if I'm trying to open a door and the bolt lock is on, but I'm trying to turn the knob and I don't know why it's not opening, I'm not going to open that door. But when I try to open the door and I see, oh, yeah, I can see that little part where that bolt lock, right? That's the obstacle that's getting in the way of me opening the door. Now I know exactly what the obstacle is. I know exactly what the solution is. And now I can open the door. Same thing here. So you have to know, you want to know what are your specific obstacles that are standing in the way from you moving from one of these unhealthy communication styles to a healthier communication style. Here are the 6 obstacles that I see most commonly. A lack of self-awareness, meaning you don't even know that it's happening. And if you do know that it's happening, you don't know why. Like you don't know why you keep doing what you do, right? Another one is past breakdowns in your communication or in your relationship are clouding the present, right? So you have built up this very negative core image of each other and you have years of resentment. So that's getting in the way, right? Another is you just don't have the ability or the tools to manage your negative emotions. You are very emotionally reactive and you give in, right, to the unhealthy style when you are in the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response, right? So you're like, oh my gosh, my emotions are taking over. I can't do the healthy thing right now, right? Other obstacles that I often see is when you don't even have an alternative tool, right? Where you're like, I don't even know what else to do. What else am I supposed to do in this situation? That's a question I get a lot, right? In the moment, you don't know what else to do. You just default to what you've always done. Or I've also seen the obstacle be, I know what I'm supposed to do, but I don't know how to do it, right? Like I know I'm supposed to like say something that's empathetic or be vulnerable, but I don't know what that looks like. So I need some help there, right? And then the other obstacle that I often see is just a justification for staying the same, right? Where you're like, oh my gosh, it's so hard not to do these things. It's so hard to avoid falling in this trap. Or my partner triggers me so much, I can't help myself, right? Or you have this negative belief about your ability to change. I've been this way for so long, I don't even know where to begin to change it, right? Those are the obstacles. That is the thing that is standing in your way from moving from one of the unhealthy to one of the healthy communication styles, right? So here's what I want you to know, right? When you can clearly identify your specific obstacle, what's standing in the way, the good news is it helps you focus your time and energy on what's going to have the greatest impact. So when you know, oh, my obstacle is actually my emotions. Like when I'm really emotional, I can't use these healthy communication tools versus knowing that my obstacle is I don't actually know what to do differently. Totally different approach. But when you can laser in on exactly your obstacle, it helps you focus your time and energy on the thing that's going to have the greatest impact, right? It's literally like if you have a car and it's not operating as well as it could, just going in to like change the oil when really it needs a new alternator. You don't want to waste your time doing the wrong thing, right? So identifying your specific obstacle is so valuable. It also helps you reduce the emotional load of trying to improve your communication, right? I talk to so many couples and they're like, yeah, we've been working on our communication. That's heavy when you don't have a focus. It's like, where do you even start, right? Most times people don't know where to start to improve their communication. So they're like shooting in the dark because they haven't done this work of identifying their specific obstacles. When you identify your obstacles, you also have very simple and doable shifts that feel within reach. If you know the biggest lever to changing your communication is you being able to navigate your emotions, you're going to get there 10 times faster and it's going to feel so much easier than thinking I need to do 12 different things every time we have a conversation. Right? No, I just focus on this one thing. That's going to make all the difference. It also gives you more confidence and hope that you can be successful, right? It's less overwhelming when you have one thing to focus on versus like 15. And then it also provides quick wins, right? You want quick wins when you're trying to do something, especially in your marriage, because your marriage is a lifelong endeavor, right? And when you have those quick wins, then you're more motivated to keep going and to then maintain your positive progress. So identifying your obstacles is super, super important. And when you do, I just want to paint a picture for you on what's on the other side. When you have this awareness of your unhealthy communication style, you've identified your obstacles, you work through your obstacles and are now able to demonstrate the healthy communication style, right? Essentially, you get more of what you want in your marriage, right? Which is fascinating because a lot of these other communication styles are trying to like control getting what you want in a negative way, and it backfires. But if you do it in a much more healthy way, you get more of what you want. And what does that look like for you? That looks like more help and support from a partner who feels like a team member. That looks like having a more empathetic ear from your partner as you share the things that are stressing you out, a partner who listens and gives you space to talk without judgment or trying to solve everything for you. That looks like having more enjoyable conversations with your partner who actually feels like your best friend. That looks like more time together where you're getting along and you're happy and you're not in conflict. It looks like more emotional connection, more intimacy, more safety, right? You're feeling like this is someone I can really talk to about anything. You also get to enjoy supporting each other more, which is the whole point of marriage, right? You get to create more fun and enjoyable family experiences. You get to enjoy this life that you have worked so hard to create for yourselves. You get to have less stress and just be more at ease. You get to be more of yourself without being worried about being judged. You get to have a meaningful connection where you are known and you are seen and you are loved for who you are. You get to have a supportive partner to walk this crazy journey of life with by your side. And you also get to stop second guessing yourself and you can feel more confident expressing your needs and your desires. So there's a lot of good things on the other side of working through your obstacles and demonstrating these healthy communication styles. We've talked through the awareness. We've gotten clarity on what needs to happen. Now, let's get you motivated to keep the momentum going, right? Here is the offer that I want to make to you. I want you to be able to take the next step with this information, right? And so my offer is to help you do that. And I'm offering a very special private consultation call with me. There's 10 spots available, okay? And this is exactly what we're going to do in that call. We are going to confirm and identify your unhealthy communication style, because you may have listened and you may have heard this and you may have been like, oh, I think I'm a little bit over here. I think I'm a little bit over there. We're going to get really clear about the one that you want to focus on and the one that's going to move the needle the most for you. We're going to also, in this call, answer the question of which obstacle is standing in the way for you specifically, and what is keeping you from a more healthy communication style, right? So we're going to be really clear about that. You're going to know, you're going to walk away from this call knowing this is my key obstacle. This is where I need to spend all of my time, energy, and attention improving, right? We're going to also map out the steps to addressing that obstacle so it's no longer a barrier. So it's one thing to know, like, oh, what I really need to focus on is regulating my emotions, or I really need to focus on knowing the steps to make a different choice, right? We're going to map that out for you. You don't have to figure that part out. We're going to figure that out on this private consultation, right? We're also going to have the opportunity to paint a more detailed picture for you and your very specific life of what healthy communication looks like, right? What that looks like for you and the steps you can take to actually be successful in shifting yourself from one of these unhealthy communication styles to a more healthy communication style. And then we are also going to have the opportunity in this call to discuss options for working together further if you would like, right? If you would like my direct help and support in making those shifts. But either way, in the call, you're going to confirm your communication style, answer the question of what obstacle is in the way, map out how to work through that obstacle, what you need to do, and then we're going to map out what healthy communication would look like for you, right? So I want you to think of like, this is my before and this is my after, and this is the work that I need to do to bridge that gap. And if you want my help and support, and if you want me to be the coach leading you through doing that work, carrying that work through, then we'll talk about all the options that we have for how we can work together in one of my coaching programs. All right, so there's 10 of those available. I've never made this offer before for this very pointed, very specific type of call. And so if you're here and you see like, yep, I'm over here and I want to get over there, I would run to sign up and grab one of the 10. And here's where you will do that, right? You're going to go to my website, drsiobhan.com/work-with-me. So I am going to put that link in the chat so you have it directly. And then I want you to let me know what you're taking away, what your next step is, and any questions that you have, because I will stay on for questions. So if you have questions, go ahead and type them in the chat. Let me get that link in the chat for you. And we'll go from there. There we go. In the chat for you. All right, you guys are so quiet tonight. Here is the link. All right, I'm just catching up on what people have put in the Q&A. Yes, absolutely. So some of us missed the beginning. Can we still sign up for a spot? 100%. 100%. So the great thing is, yes, sign up for a spot ASAP, and then you will also have the replay available. I will post the replay everywhere I could possibly post it. I don't know. I shared this with one of my coaching groups. My email service provider is having a little bit of deliverability issues with my emails. So I know there are plenty of people who signed up for this masterclass who didn't get the reminder emails and may not get the replay email. So I'm going to do what's within my power, right? This is me being empowered. I'm going to do what's in my power and control to get the replay out to people as quickly as possible. So you will have that replay. If not tonight, it'll be tomorrow, tomorrow morning. And you can catch up on anything that you missed at the beginning, and you can watch it as many times as you need. And you can have all that great information to bring with you when we do our private consultation. So that'll be great. Yeah, good question. All right, let's see make sure I get all the questions. All right. Someone's sharing why they signed up for this. I want to have no more failed relationships. I want to learn the different styles so I know how to communicate with a partner who may have that style, or recognize earlier when the relationship won't work, or to adjust my style to better handle theirs. Yeah, so good. That is really good. I have a wonderful client who has been with me for a while now. She came in to one of my coaching programs with her partner, and ultimately, they ended their relationship because she was doing the work and she got really clear about what was the work she needed to do, what was the work he needed to do, and he just wasn't ready to do it. And she and I have continued to work together. She had this exact perspective of like, I want to understand myself. I want to be able to have this information, really master it so that I can bring an elevated version of myself into my next relationship. And she is in the middle of like building a beautiful relationship with an amazing man and is just showing up so differently as a different person. She was for sure the sort of submissive type because her previous partner was very domineering. And now she's like right in that healthy communication. We were all like clapping for her the other night in one of our coaching calls because she's really stepping into this healthy communication. So I love that. I love that for you. Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, the good news is if you schedule a call with me, you can ask any questions that come up for you. It will be my delight to have that time to get to know you a little bit better, to offer you clarity on exactly what's going on, and to help you take the next steps to remove any of the obstacles standing in the way. All right. Anything else? I'll give you a minute to like think and collect your thoughts if there's a question that's percolating in your mind, or even just a comment. If you want to share anything you're taking away from this call, or how you're feeling as we end. Anyone? Anyone want to share any questions or takeaways? All right. You can type them in the chat. Going once. Going twice. All right, everyone's going to book a call and just talk with me there. I'm really looking forward. Yeah, you're so welcome. You are so welcome. I love sharing this information. Thank you for taking it in, right? So I want you all to just remember, as I shared at the beginning, you have made yourselves available for this because you are ready and you want something to change. And knowing this information, being able to identify your communication style is the first step of your awareness. And that awareness is what is going to help you create those shifts, right? So I really am excited for those of you who are signing up for that private consultation with me to really help you laser in on what are your very specific obstacles to get some greater clarity and insight on how to navigate those obstacles so you can make the shift from whatever unhealthy communication style to a more healthy one where you have a relationship that's what you want, where you feel seen and heard and understood by your partner, you are enjoying your conversations, and you're in a lot less conflict, because that's what this is all about. So thank you so much for being here, for tuning in. I will get that replay out to you. And if for whatever reason, if you're on my email list and you don't get the replay, send me a message. Just email me, send me a message. I am getting people's emails. So if you message me directly, you can also find me on social media. I am on Instagram. Let me just put my Instagram at Dr. Siobhan if you don't already follow me there. Find me there and just send me a message like, hey, I was on the call. I didn't get the email. I'm trying all the things to make sure I connect with everyone to get them this information. All right. Have a wonderful, wonderful night or day if you're listening to this in the replay. And I'll be back with you another time. And for those of you who will schedule a call, I really look forward to talking with you and keeping the momentum going with your next steps. All right. Thank